This time I'm going to look at another multi-system conversion machine. This one's from Aiwa. This is my machine. It was given to me a few years ago. It was at another shop that went out of business. It sat in that shop for... The guy that gave it to me said it was in the shop for like a year. And he collected it just as they were going out of business. Didn't want it back, just said I could have it for parts. Today we're going to try and get it going. I was given this Aiwa MX100 a while back, and I've never really done anything with it. I think I looked at it briefly, but never really spent a lot of time on the unit. I understand it's got a problem with the tape end sensors, and it had been to a shop, and it sat there at a shop for months, and finally the shop went out of business and the owner collected it. It's like it's got a, looks like they left something out of it. I'm curious as to whether I'm going to be able to do anything on this unit or not, knowing not really a hell of a lot about it or its history or where that piece came from. Oh, it looks like that piece goes right down here. It looks like that piece connects two boards together, doesn't it? I bet you that's where that piece goes, right down there. I've never opened one of these machines before, so I'm not really sure what has to come out on it. But that looks like that goes into those two plugs right down there. I guess the person that looked at this last just gave up on it. I might be giving up on this too. Be kind of cool if I could get it to run. Looks like there's just another screw down here that holds this bracket in place. From what I understand, these actually don't do a bad job of converting. I've never seen the picture out of one, but I understand they do a half decent. So I think that goes down. Yeah, that's where that goes. That connects there. That won't be the problem with it. I guarantee that's not the problem, but I just want to plug it in and power the thing up and see what it does. Okay, we'll plug it in and just see what it does, if anything. Okay, that was a good sign. If I turn it on, what happens? Will it stay on? Or will it even turn on at all? I don't think it'll turn on. Okay, it's on. And it turns off. Interesting. I don't see any infrared light Could it be just the infrared light that the LED is no good? Wouldn't that be something? It's possible. It's possible that the infrared light is no good. The LED. Interesting. That's what I'm going to concentrate on, is the sensor that's bad on this thing. Go back out at night shot. Turn some lights on here again. Yeah, it could be tape sensors that are bad on this that's causing problems. So I'll start by opening the unit up. I feel the shuttle dial is going to come flying off the front when I open this up. Let's get that sneaking suspicion that that's going to all fall apart. Yep. Okay, what do I got to take apart on this thing now? I'm going to take the deck out of here. Gonna get the circuit board out too. Never taken one of these ones apart. Okay, that board comes out. Chassis should lift out with just a few screws. Okay, that lifts. Chassis lifts out. Okay, so there's a couple of photo diodes here, and there's this LED, and there's two more of them here for the rotation sensors. This is the main one that lights up the end sensors. Guess I'll pull this board next. Unplug that. That's going to be the converter board. And I got to undo this. That was undone before. Take that one out. Take out that. Take out that one. I don't see a mode switch. Oh yeah, this one right here. Mode switch over here. Got some detection switches up the front here. What chassis is this one? This doesn't look familiar. It's got a SCART connector on the back, and it's got two tuners. It's got a European and a North American tuner.
whole thing must lift out. I think. The whole back lifts out of this one. It's got to lift out. Got to be catches on here somewhere. Yeah, okay, where are we here? Holy smoke, someone's been doing something on the bottom of this board. Look at this. Looking at the bottom of this chassis, someone's cut the whole bottom out of it to work on it. Look at that. This has been all cut away. But there's the... what have they done here? Okay, someone's changed that sensor. Someone's changed that tape sensor. It's a different sensor than this one. Over here. It's a different type of sensor. But there's no light. That whole assembly was loose. Oh, look at this. Check this out. So maybe this is why it's not working. You think that might be why it's not putting out any light? And what is this? I might not be able to save this patient. What would be nice to do though is if I could get the standard converter board to work. That would work. Well, let's see if I can find an LED. We'll fix that board up. That might be why that LED is not lighting. The problem is I can't power this thing up unless I put it back together. Jeez. I don't know. This has had a lot of work done on it. Somebody's really done a good job on this one. Like that board's damaged here. Someone's repaired it or tried to repair it. I don't even know if it's been repaired successfully or not. Huh. Now I know why this was abandoned. This came from a shop that went out of business probably 10 years ago. Maybe 9 years ago. The people that owned it took it to this shop. And the guy had it for months, according to the people that owned it. He had it for months and couldn't fix it. They went in one day to find out what was going on with it and found that this technician had quit and that the shop was going to be shutting down. So they reclaimed it. Sat on it for a number of years. And then gave it to me. I think I've had this thing sitting here for a couple of years anyway. And I knew that it had been worked on. That's why I haven't gotten into it as of yet. And I'm looking at this mess on the board here, and I'm wondering, do I really want to get into this thing? Or do I'm just going to scrap it? I like to get it to work, but more of as a standards converter. If I could make this thing stay, like it won't stay turned on. If I could make this thing stay turned on, even if the tape transport itself wasn't functional, I could probably live with that. I'm curious as to how I could do that. I wonder if there's no light coming from that LED, so, and I see it's broken here, so I wonder if it's just burned out, or whether the diode is shot, or whether it's just the traces are broken. I can see the traces are broken for sure. Just gonna measure that with my meter to see whether it's if the diode's any good. I can see people grumbling and complaining now that I'm giving up on it, but I'm not really giving up on it. It's just I don't know where to begin on something that's damaged like this. Okay, is this LED any good? I wonder if I put my camera on there, just put my diode tester across. I'm just going to look and see whether I see any light coming out of this LED. Okay, I'm just going to put the probes from my meter across here and see whether we see any light coming out of that LED. Oh, look, it does emit light. Cool. So maybe it's just the connections are broken. I'm going to bridge over the broken traces here on the LED. I can see them with my magnifying glasses. And I trace the traces out where they went. I'm just going to put a couple of bridge wires because those traces are damaged beyond repair in the vicinity of this. So one of them goes down to this transistor down here. That's the negative side. Goes down to here. And that comes up to the LED up there. And the other one goes to this resistor right there. So I'm just going to prep another little wire. Wherever I do with them. I cut a couple of little short pieces of wire. Okay, now I'll just try applying power to this unit and see whether that LED lights up. Turn this over and I'll put the camera into night shot, and I just want to see if we get any light out of that LED here. I know it lights up when I put my tester across it, so let's just see, does it light up? No, it doesn't. Oh yeah, it does. Excellent. It doesn't look that bright, but I guess it is. Well, it's doing a lot better than it was before. It wasn't lighting up at all. I'm going to put the circuit board back in and just plug the mechanism in and see whether anything happens. Now, I am going to be very clear here. I do not expect anything to change. I do not expect this unit to work at all.
but then you never know. It might. I don't know what to expect. I don't think for 1 second it'll be that simple, that that's all that's wrong with this unit. I took out some screws I didn't need to take out, so I'm just going to put them back in. Just because it might make setting this in a little easier. That goes in like this. It's been so long since I've taken one of these ones apart, I forget how they go together. There, I believe it goes in like that, and then there's a couple of screws that hold it in place. Well, that one's not doing anything. This is more like a starting, just a kind of assessment to see how bad it really will be. Okay, where the heck does this one go? I guess this one goes down here. See how these machines operate is if the tape sensor, when there's no tape in it, light from the tape sensor LED will hit both the photo detectors on the end here. That indicates there's no tape. When you push a tape in, there's a little down here. You'll see there's a little cover. You see it? When you push the tape in, there's a little cover right here that slides in, and that's what triggers the loading. When the light gets blocked to this one, that's what triggers the loading. So if the end sensor doesn't work, these machines don't work at all. They shut down. So the problem could very well have just been that sensor wasn't working, but the guy that worked on it before obviously spent a lot of time in that area, so he was probably in that circuit trying to figure out why it wasn't working. It may be the LED itself is just too weak, because they do get weak, and of course I don't have one, so okay, what else do I got to plug in? This other one's got to plug in down here. They're making it any easier, are they? Probably should have plugged that in before I put the chassis in. Let's power it up and see if I can see any light. Ah, I see a light flickering.
I don't think it's going to work. Nope. Still doing the same thing it was doing before. I like these displays. Green. It's got multicolor vacuum fluorescent. See, none of the buttons seem to do anything either. So it's ejecting the tape like it's looking for that sensor. And what I don't know is whether it's just the light's not bright enough from this LED. We can clearly see it shining. And it shines over to here. Something that I noticed is that somebody cut a hole in the bottom of this thing. So this bottom cover will come off. See, somebody's exposed this. This is where someone was working on this before. What I'm curious is if I short these two sensors, just even temporarily, will the machine stay turned on? Like it would if it was ejected. Obviously it's not going to play a tape. It's not going to detect a tape. But I'm curious whether it'll stay on, whether I can make the standards converter work. If I can make the standards converter work and the deck not work, it might be one just to use as a standards converter, because I do have a multi-system machine. And say this is my machine now. But if I can prove it that that's the problem, then it's just a matter of finding an LED of the right frequency. It could be one of these photo transistors too. I mean, I may have to just change all of them. But the thing is, trying to find them. That's the problem, is trying to find these, because a lot of them were wavelength specific. They only operated on a specific wavelength, and the photo transistors themselves also were only sensitive to a specific wavelength. And that was just so that external light, like when someone was servicing the machine, wouldn't start triggering things. So they went to a wavelength specific frequency for the LEDs. So I'm just going to try bridging both of these momentarily and see what happens. Because normally they would be like a short, like they'd be on. When light is hitting them, they would be conducting. So if I just short the two photo transistors, that might fool the machine into thinking there's no tape in it, and it will stay turned on. So I just put a short on both of those photo transistors. I'll power the unit up. See whether it will stay turned on, or whether it'll still do the same thing.
Now this doesn't work, and I'll tell you the reason why. I wasn't thinking about it, but the reason it's not working is because that LED is not a constant source. It's actually pulsed at a high frequency, and the pulses are timed
on the front do anything either.
To arrive at the end sensors. So putting a short across the end sensor would provide a constant load, but that's not how they work. There's a time slice when the LED pulses that the micro looks to see whether there's a signal on either end sensor. The same as there's a timed pulse for the rotation sensors, so that the two photo transistors can use the same return path as the end sensors.
I don't even know where to begin on this. Take a look at the power supply and see if there's any sign of leaking caps. I can't see that being the problem, though. I still think it's the tape sensors, and obviously somebody else did too, because that's where they were working. But I don't have any tape sensors. I don't have any LEDs that are going to work. Guaranteed I don't have any LEDs. If I had a mechanism the same as this, I would just take it off of that, but I don't. I don't have one of these ones. I think these caps are changed in here. They look like they're originals. But I don't see anything bulging. Like, you don't see any pop tops on them. Well, that one may have been changed. We'll take a look at the caps. I don't think we're going to find anything, but you know, weird things happen when ESR goes up on capacitors. You get weird things happening if you get ripple. And I really just don't know where to begin on this one. It'd be nice if nobody had been into it. Right, if this was brought to me or given to me and no one had been into it, but I guess what I'm up against is I don't know. I'm chasing an original fault, or I'm chasing a fault that was caused by somebody else working on this thing in the past. That's what I'm up against. Is there hidden damage on here? Damage caused by somebody else. It looks like this cap may have been changed. Maybe not. Maybe not. Make sure that this thing's dead completely. Don't need any surprises. We'll just measure some ESR here on some of these caps and just see how they look. Okay, what about this one right here? 0.15, I'm happy with that. And there's this one here. 0.03, I'm happy with that. C19. Make sure they're all shorted out. .3. What is C19? C19 is a 220 at 16. So 220 at 16, but 0.33, and it was 0.31. So that should be okay. 0.03, 0.2, 330 at 16. Yeah, that's probably okay as well. I think these capacitors are okay. Yeah, they all look okay. Check the fuses on here. It's got some ICP cutouts. We'll check these. Make sure that they're all good. Well, this one I think might just have to go back on the shelf and become a parts donor if I ever get another one. The mechanism's probably okay on this one, as I don't see anything that's jumping out other than maybe the photo transistors and the LED is weak. But I don't know. I'm taking a guess that that's where the problem is, and the fact that somebody else has been into there tells me that they were thinking the same thing. They were thinking along the same line, that that's where the fault was. But they never found the fault. And as I say, the person that gave me this thing about I think 3 or 4 years ago, they had it sitting in their I guess it was in their basement or their attic or wherever they had it. But they had it sitting there since it came back from Brig House TV. That was the name of the shop that had it. And it was in the shop for like months and months and months and months, and they never fixed it. And they gave it back to them when they were closing their doors. And then it just sat in their house for years. And they say they just gave it to me a few years ago. Asked me if I wanted it. Asked me if I could fix it and what it would cost to fix. And I told them I didn't know. And they didn't really want to spend any money on it. So at that point they said, well, you can just keep it. And I put it away, and say today I looked at it, but I don't think I'm going to go any further. Not at this point anyway. Let's put this thing back together and put it back on the shelf and let her sit there, and maybe I'll come across another one of these someday and I can steal parts off of it. Or if I come across another chassis like this, that like the same mechanism, then I can steal parts. It would be nice to get this thing working just because it's a conversion machine. Not that I do much in the way of conversion these days, but it'd still be nice to have one running. If I can get it running, I will. But at this point, I think we're going to call it a day, and I'm going to put this thing together, and we'll end the video now because you guys don't need to see me put the screws back in. But anyway, if anybody has any ideas, I'm open ears on this one. But I'm thinking there's where our fault is. I guess that was one way I could tell if this thing had been open or not. They had a paint seal on it. I didn't even look to see whether that paint was broken. But these ones had a paint seal on them. Anyway, I think we'll end it here. Thanks for watching.